Chương 1. France in October of the year 1918 presents a cold and unforgiving landscape. One solitary man walks slowly through the dense morning mist of the forest. Behind him march 132 heavily armed German soldiers. They are fully trained and experienced in the brutal art of war. Yet they are obediently following a simple farmer from Tennessee whom they had just tried to kill. Nobody officially ordered these elite troops to follow this lone American soldier. They made the conscious choice to surrender their weapons and their freedom to him. His hands are still visibly shaking from the adrenaline and the horrors he has just witnessed. He left his quiet home in the mountains as a devoted pacifist who abhorred violence. Now he is about to go home as an absolute legend. However, this story is not merely about how one single man defeated 132 battle-hardened soldiers. It is a deep psychological study about why those 132 soldiers decided this one man was worth surrendering to. The answer lies in a masterclass of instinct and survival. We must rewind the clock to understand the sheer magnitude of this unbelievable event. Let us go back a few hours before the extraordinary march through the forest. Before dawn breaks, 17 men move silently through the treacherous French woods. Alvin York is just one of them. He is not the commanding officer or the fearless leader of this patrol. He is merely a corporal following orders and doing his assigned job while desperately trying not to think about his peaceful Tennessee home. Their mission seems relatively straightforward on the official tactical papers. They are ordered to capture the vital railroad and sever the essential German supply lines. To aid them, they have been given a military map. The glaring problem is that the map is printed entirely in French. Not a single man in the American patrol can read or understand a word of the French language. Blinded by the language barrier, they press forward anyway and move deeper into the dark forest. They wander further from their friendly lines and further from anything vaguely familiar or safe. The ancient trees grow thicker, and the morning light becomes dangerously dim. The reassuring sounds of their own artillery support slowly fade away behind them. They are walking directly into a deadly invisible trap. Suddenly they hear unfamiliar voices cutting through the heavy mist. They are German voices, and they sound terrifyingly close to their current position. The American patrol realizes too late that they have walked directly into the center of a massive German encampment. For one agonizing second, nobody dares to move a single muscle. The tension in the cold air is absolute and suffocating. The Americans instinctively open fire first, and the startled Germans immediately scatter into the brush. The patrol manages to capture a small group of confused prisoners almost instantly. It is far more than they initially expected to find. For one fleeting second, it actually feels like a swift and decisive victory. They believe they have successfully executed a brilliant surprise attack on the enemy camp. Then the entire hillside suddenly explodes with deafening and lethal violence. Hidden machine guns positioned high above them in the tree line open fire simultaneously. They rain thousands of bullets down into the exposed valley where the American patrol is standing. The soldiers and their newly acquired prisoners are caught completely in the open. There is absolutely nowhere to run and nowhere to hide from the onslaught. In the chaotic first burst of relentless machine gun fire, 6 American soldiers go down. They are tragically dead before their bodies even hit the cold forest floor. 3 more men are severely wounded by the flying shrapnel and bullets. 9 men out of a 17-man patrol are instantly taken out of the fight in under 10 seconds. The sheer speed of the slaughter is deeply terrifying. York frantically looks around through the thick smoke for someone to give a tactical order. The primary sergeant is dead on the ground. The secondary sergeant is also dead. The leading corporal is severely wounded and unable to speak. Every single man above York in the established chain of command is either bleeding out or lifeless. There is absolutely nobody left to tell them what to do. The brutal machine guns on the elevated ridge are still firing relentlessly into their position. Alvin York, the gentle pacifist farmer from Tennessee who desperately begged not to be sent here, is now the highest-ranking soldier. The man who fervently believed that killing was a mortal sin is now the only capable leader left standing. He must make an impossible choice to save the remaining survivors. To understand how this peaceful man processes this chaotic nightmare, we must look at his origins. Alvin York grew up with one unyielding and harsh rule in his household. If you miss your target with the rifle, The entire family simply does not eat dinner. He lived with 10 siblings in the rugged and unforgiving mountains of Tennessee, where survival required absolute perfection and unwavering focus. They shared only one hunting rifle among them to secure their daily food. By the time York reached the age of 12, he was already recognized as the most lethal shot in his entire county. This incredible skill did not come from leisurely target practice or expensive training. It was forged entirely by the brutal necessity of extreme poverty and the relentless threat of daily starvation. His accuracy was completely terrifying and practically unnatural to observe. He could easily hit a fast-moving wild turkey from a distance of 200 yards without a scope. He possessed a deadly precision where he never had to fire a second shot to secure his prey. His mind and hands worked in perfect synchronization to calculate wind speed and target trajectory in a fraction of a second. However, 2 years before the dreaded military draft letter arrived in his mailbox, York experienced a profound transformation. He attended a local religious revival meeting that completely altered his worldview. He walked into that crowded tent as a rough and rugged mountain hunter. He walked out as a fundamentally different human being entirely devoted to peace. He found a new absolute truth in the Holy Scriptures. The ancient biblical text was incredibly clear and uncompromising to his mind. The commandment explicitly stated, "Thou shalt not kill under any circumstances." It did not offer exceptions for when your country asks for your service. It did not offer loopholes for times of global conflict and war. It was a simple and absolute law of the universe that York believed in, just like he believed in gravity. Consequently, when the official draft letter finally arrived in 1917, York did something highly unusual. He did something that practically nobody else in his proud and patriotic mountain community dared to do. He flatly said no to the United States government. He officially filed paperwork seeking conscientious objector status due to his deep religious convictions. His request was swiftly and mercilessly denied by the military board. He stubbornly filed the exemption paperwork a second time, hoping they would understand his peaceful heart. He was denied once again by the unrelenting military bureaucracy. The third official letter he received was absolutely not a polite request for his service. It was a final and demanding mandate that required his immediate presence. York carefully folded the crisp paper and placed it deep into his worn pocket. He walked out to the quiet field behind his modest house and stood there for a long time. He stared at the majestic mountains that had shaped his entire existence. He was truly not afraid of dying on a foreign battlefield. He was profoundly terrified of coming home as a fundamentally different person. He feared sitting at his dining table and looking at hands stained with human blood. Despite his immense spiritual dread, he dutifully reported for basic training and military service. Somewhere on the long journey between the quiet hills of Tennessee and the violent trenches of France, he made a silent deal with his Creator. He simply was not entirely sure if the divine presence was actually listening to his desperate pleas. Now he stands in a bloody valley surrounded by horrific death. The deafening roar of the German machine guns snaps his mind back to the horrific present reality. York does not freeze in terror like a normal man would under such overwhelming fire. He does not drop to his knees to pray for divine intervention. He does not waste precious seconds thinking about his beautiful home or the spiritual deal he made on the crowded troop transport ship. There is absolutely no time for any philosophical contemplation or religious debate right now. There is only the steep hillside towering aggressively above him. There is the terrifying mechanical sound of the heavy weapons tearing the trees apart. There are 8 terrified men still alive who are desperately looking at him. They are waiting for someone to tell them exactly what to do to survive this absolute massacre. He assumes full command in the only practical way his mind actually knows how to operate. He does not yell out complex tactical military orders or formulate an intricate defensive plan. He relies entirely on raw, primal instinct honed by years of surviving in the wilderness. He firmly tells the surviving American soldiers to hold the captured prisoners securely and to stay low to the muddy ground. Then he slowly turns his body toward the steep and deadly hill. He faces the heavily fortified machine gun positions that had just slaughtered 6 of his closest friends in under 10 seconds. He does something completely unexpected and quietly starts moving forward. He is not foolishly charging or running blindly into the hail of bullets. He moves with the silent grace of an apex predator. He advances exactly the way a seasoned hunter moves through the dense mountain foliage before the dawn. He moves so silently that the wild animals never even suspect he is nearby. His posture is incredibly low, and his movements are slow and meticulously deliberate. He uses every single tree trunk and every dark shadow to completely mask his steady approach. He utilizes every tiny fold in the earth. His physical body is executing complex maneuvers that his conscious mind never even has to process. He has performed this exact stealthy approach 10,000 times before in his life. He learned this not in a formal military academy, but in the rugged wilderness before sunrise. He remembers those critical moments when his family desperately needed food and missing a target meant going to bed with severe hunger pains. The confident German gunners positioned high on the ridge are absolutely not looking for a single man. They are intensely watching the trapped Americans huddled in the valley far below them. They are eagerly waiting for the broken patrol to panic and run into the open. That is exactly what always happens when heavy machine guns open fire at such devastatingly close range. People naturally panic and scatter blindly. It is not a matter of cowardice, but a simple biological reaction to overwhelming noise and sudden death. Every single military unit in every recorded war has broken under unexpected enfilading fire from an elevated and fortified position. The American patrol down below does not break because York simply does not allow them to. He keeps pushing himself silently up the steep incline toward the deadly weapons. Now we arrive at a fascinating strategic detail that most historical accounts completely fail to understand. This specific detail elegantly explains the sheer genius of his upcoming actions. York grew up hunting wild turkeys in the dense forests. These birds are absolutely not stupid or slow animals. They are incredibly fast and highly alert creatures that constantly communicate danger to each other with complex warning calls. If you are actively hunting a flock of these birds and you shoot the leader at the front, everything changes. The rest of the flock will instantly scatter in total panic and vanish. You might get one bird, or maybe two if your hands are incredibly fast. Then the entire flock is gone forever, and you are forced to walk home to a starving family with absolutely nothing. Therefore, a master hunter learns very quickly that you never shoot the front bird first. You must always initiate your attack from the very back of the formation. You carefully take out the last bird in the line first. It drops quietly to the forest floor. The observant birds walking in the front do not see it happen and do not hear the muffled impact. They remain blissfully unaware. They do not suspect that anything in their safe environment has violently changed. Then you methodically take the next target from the back of the line. You patiently work your way forward slowly and with absolute precision. By the time the leading birds finally realize something is horribly wrong, there are no birds left behind them to shout a warning. York had mastered this since he was 8. He silently applied this exact same ruthless logic to the fortified German machine gun position above him. He carefully positioned himself at a steep angle where he had a clear line of sight. He could see the entire row of enemy gunners operating their heavy weapons. However, they could not easily spot him hiding perfectly still among the dark trees and thick bushes. He raised his deadly rifle. He started his lethal work from the very back of the enemy formation. One single shot rings out, and the last gunner in the trench line goes down instantly. The focused gunners in the front do not notice their comrade falling dead behind them. The deafening mechanical noise of the raging battle covers everything perfectly. Nobody ever looks over their shoulder when they are busy executing an attack. He fires again, and the next gunner from the back slumps forward lifelessly. He continues his grim work with clean and methodical precision. He establishes the exact same breathing rhythm he had used 1,000 times in the quiet mountains. The only difference is that these human targets are surrounded by friends who are aggressively shooting back. The German return fire is flying wildly from every possible direction. Thousands of hot bullets are violently striking the thick tree trunks completely surrounding his hidden position. They are fiercely tearing up the dirt and roots right next to his boots. He can hear them snapping the branches, and he can actually feel the air move as they pass inches from his face. Yet the man who desperately begged not to be here stands completely still and calm. He does not flinch as he keeps shooting with terrifying mechanical accuracy. It is not because his natural human fear has magically disappeared in the heat of battle. It is because somewhere within the deafening noise and thick smoke, his priorities shifted. He looked at the bleeding bodies of his fallen friends on the ground below. The fear of dying became significantly smaller than the fear of doing nothing. He carefully fires his weapon exactly 28 times from his hidden vantage point. 28 times his bullets hit exactly what his steady eyes were aiming at. The devastating machine gun position that had effortlessly killed 6 Americans in 10 seconds suddenly goes completely quiet. The sudden silence in the forest is almost more terrifying than the previous deafening roar of the heavy artillery fire. Then something unprecedented happens that absolutely nobody on that bloody hillside could have ever predicted. A high-ranking German officer suddenly stands fully upright in the muddy trench. His name is Major Paul Wollmer, and he is completely stunned. He has just watched a single invisible shooter systematically eliminate every single gunner on his heavily fortified hill. He decides he must personally stop this impossible and invisible phantom. Major Wollmer is absolutely not a coward or a foolish commander by any stretch of the imagination. He is a highly decorated German veteran who has been fighting brutally on the Western Front for 4 long years. He has personally witnessed unimaginable horrors that would instantly break the minds of most ordinary men. He has somehow survived endless artillery barrages and horrific poison gas attacks without completely losing his sanity. He has courageously led numerous infantry charges straight across open ground into enemy fire. He intimately knows exactly what modern war looks like from every conceivable horrific angle. Yet what he is watching happen to his men right now simply does not make any logical sense. One lone man, standing mostly in the open, is systematically dismantling an entire machine gun battalion without retreating or showing fear. Wollmer stands up straight and draws his heavy service pistol with grim determination. He forcefully commands 6 of his absolute best surviving infantrymen to follow him into the danger zone. They launch a desperate and aggressive bayonet charge directly down the steep hill toward York. It is an incredibly brave tactical maneuver designed to rapidly overwhelm the lone American sniper with sheer numbers and brute physical force. It is the only truly logical thing left to do in this desperate situation. One single man with a bolt-action rifle simply cannot stop 7 angry soldiers charging at him simultaneously from a very close range. By the time the sniper manages to physically reload his weapon, the charging men will be standing directly on top of him. You must violently rush a sniper before he can react. York clearly sees the angry men sprinting aggressively down the hill toward his concealed position. He calmly puts down his empty rifle and smoothly draws his standard-issue military pistol without a hint of panic. Back in his quiet home state, York actively competed in highly stressful shooting matches. The absolute most important skill required to win those dangerous matches is not raw accuracy, but blistering mechanical speed. York had spent many long years training his hands to move significantly faster than his brain could think. Most normal soldiers in this terrifying situation would completely panic and fire blindly into the approaching chaos. York does not panic and does not waste a single movement. He instinctively starts his defensive shooting sequence from the back of the charging group. The last angry man goes down instantly. He works his way forward through the charging soldiers, using the exact same methodical rhythm. He shoots from back to front, giving the leading men absolutely no time to understand what is happening behind them. 6 rapid shots echo fiercely through the trees, and 6 men fall violently to the dirt. Major Wollmer abruptly stops his desperate sprint and stands completely alone, surrounded by absolute silence and death. His pistol is empty, and a single American soldier is pointing a hot weapon directly at his chest. This lone farmer has just executed a feat that Wollmer believed was physically impossible. Wollmer wisely raises his hands and formally offers to surrender the entire fortified position. He is surrendering every single surviving German soldier hidden on that bloody and defeated hill to prevent any further senseless slaughter today. York commands the officer to surrender, and Wollmer orders his terrified men to stand down immediately. One by one, the defeated German soldiers slowly emerge from their defensive positions and quietly line up. York meticulously counts them as they slowly file past him until he reaches the unbelievable number of 132. York feels deeply grateful because every single one of those men is now alive. He forces Major Woolmer to march at the very front of the massive prisoner column right beside him. As long as the Alpha leader is cooperating, the disciplined German soldiers will follow him obediently back to the American lines. When they finally arrive, the commanding American officer is utterly bewildered by the impossible sight. The incredible story turns York into a massive national hero and absolute living legend overnight. Hollywood studios aggressively tried to buy his incredible story for massive sums of cash, but he refused them all. He ultimately returned to his quiet mountain life and used the limited funds he acquired to build a public school. He wanted to help impoverished children who grew up exactly like he did. He remained a true pacifist who went to a terrible war and came back exactly the same.